When I walked across that stage in my cap and gown, the cheers from the crowd were deafening, but not for me. My sister, Madeline, had just received her honors cord and a standing ovation. She smiled like she was on top of the world. And my parents? They were already reaching for their phones to take more photos of her, not even realizing that I was next in line. But that was the plan. Because in just a few seconds, I was going to do something that would make them finally look at me, not just glance, not just politely nod, but see me. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Mine was served with a diploma in one hand and a microphone in the other, but to understand that moment, the one that blew up everything, they'd need to go back. Back to when they decided I wasn't worth it. Back to when they made a choice. That shaped everything that followed. I was 17 when it started. We were twins. Same birthday, same schools, same everything. But when college acceptance letters arrived, suddenly, we weren't equals anymore. Madeline got accepted into the same university as me. But when she opened her letter at the dinner table, Mom cried. Dad clapped. They hugged her like she won the lottery. When I opened mine just 5 minutes later, nothing. No smile, no congratulations. Just a passing comment from Dad. Nice. Aubrey, hope you can get some scholarships. I laughed nervously, thinking maybe they were just tired or distracted. But then Madeline asked a question that changed everything. Will you guys help with tuition? She asked sweetly. Mom reached across the table, grabbed her hand and said, Of course, honey. We already set some money aside. Then I asked the same question. My mom looked at me like I had asked for a kidney. You're smart, Aubrey. You'll figure it out. That was it. That was the moment. They didn't even hesitate. They had money for her, but not for me, that night. While Madeline celebrated with a bottle of Ross and Instagram posts about dorm shopping, I sat in my room staring at my laptop screen with a pit in my stomach. I applied for 6 scholarships, 3 student loans, and 2 part-time jobs. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But I promised myself something. I would graduate. I would do it alone. And they would regret ever treating me like I was disposable. The next 4 years were war. While Madeline joined sororities, studied abroad in Italy, and posted selfies from parties with captions like living my best life, I was brewing coffee at a.m., attending classes from 9 to 5, and tutoring rich kids in calculus at night. There were weeks I didn't eat anything but instant noodles. Months where I had to choose between textbooks or rent. But I never quit. Because quitting would have meant they were right about me. And every time I saw them post another picture of Madeline, her fancy outfits, her beach vacations, her birthday dinners at 5-star restaurants, I added another mental brick to the wall I was building. They thought they were building a queen, but they were really creating a monster. A monster with a degree, a plan, and a microphone waiting at graduation. I started calling it the blueprint in my head. It wasn't a full-fledged revenge plan at first, more like a quiet coping mechanism. A story I'd tell myself late at night, when I was too exhausted to cry, too angry to scream. A fantasy where one day, they would regret it. All of it. It started small. Like when I stopped texting them back, they didn't really notice. I mean, Madeline was always blowing up the family group chat anyway. Look at my new dress. Guess who got invited to the honors gala? Mom, can you send me money for brunch? She was the show. I was just a seat in the audience no one remembered filling. That was fine by me. Because while she was busy shining, I was building. In my second year, I stopped going home for holidays. I told them I had to work, which was true, but more importantly, I didn't want to see their proud smiles while Madeline opened another just because gift. I didn't want to sit across a table from people who looked at my twin and saw gold, and looked at me and saw debt. Instead, I used those breaks to grind. I took on extra tutoring clients. I learned how to design resumes, wrote essays for international students who struggled with English, and eventually started ghostwriting application letters for law schools, med schools, you name it. Money started trickling in. By the end of my junior year, I had paid off 2 of my loans in full. And no one knew. Because no one asked. My mom would call maybe once a month. usually to ask if I'd seen Madeline's latest post. She looked so gorgeous in that green dress, didn't she? She's dating a guy in finance now, such a good match. She might get invited to a TEDx talk. Can you believe that? Every time, I'd say, wow, and go back to highlighting molecular biology notes at my job's front counter. But I wasn't just studying, I was documenting every scholarship I won without their help. Every semester I made the dean's list. Every paper that got published in the undergraduate journal. I saved it all. I even had screenshots, photos, PDF receipts. A living, breathing file I kept on a password-protected USB drive named Graduation. Why? Because one day, I wasn't just going to tell them what I did, I was going to show them publicly, and it wouldn't be some angry outburst. No crying, no yelling, just cold, calculated truth. By senior year, I started noticing something. Madeline wasn't doing as well as they thought. She had dropped a few classes. She was on academic probation for a semester, though my parents never mentioned it, probably because she lied. I found her name missing from the dean's list again and again, but they kept calling her our star. Meanwhile, I got nominated for Student of the Year in my department. I didn't tell a soul, because I wanted the shock to be fresh when I revealed it. The university had a tradition. At graduation, one outstanding student is invited to give a surprise speech, kept secret until the moment they step up to the mic. When I got the invitation to be this year's speaker, I said yes without hesitation, but I didn't write some generic speech about hope and the future. No, I wrote a confession. Not for me, but for them. And every sentence was laced with 4 years of silence, pain, and quiet triumph. They wanted a show. I was going to give them one they'd never forget. The auditorium was packed wall to wall with families, faculty, and future alumni, all glowing with pride and possibility. It smelled like flowers, cheap perfume, and nervous sweat. Flashbulbs popped every second. Parents elbowed each other for better photos, and tassels swayed like tiny flags of freedom. I sat in the front row, my palms damp under the folds of my gown. Not from fear, no. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. My name was in the program. But only a handful of faculty knew I was the mystery speaker. My parents didn't. They were 4 rows back, sitting next to Madeline, who, as usual, had secured herself a front row spotlight seat with her sorority sisters. She wore a bright red dress under her robe. It practically screamed, "Look at me." And they did. They always did. A faculty member stepped up to the podium and cleared her throat. Every year, we ask one graduate to share their story, their challenges, their triumphs, their growth. This year's speaker was chosen for resilience, excellence, and something else: quiet determination. A pause. My mother tilted her head. My father started clapping too early, assuming it was Madeline. Even Madeline began adjusting her gown. And then, "Please welcome, Aubrey Miller." Silence. Not just surprise, shock. I stood up slowly. My feet felt like steel, not from weight, but from power. As I walked to the stage, I heard someone gasp. I think it was my mom. I didn't look back. I took the podium and adjusted the mic. And then I smiled, not the sweet, practiced smile of a people pleaser, the smile of someone who had finally taken back the narrative. "Good morning." I began, scanning the crowd, pausing only when I found their faces. "You probably don't know me. That's okay." Most people didn't. The crowd chuckled politely. I leaned in. "But you'll remember me after today." Silence. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. 4 years ago, I was told without being told that I didn't matter as much, that some dreams were more worth investing in than others. And I watched as people who shared my blood gave everything to someone else, while I was left to patch together my future with duct tape and desperation. Now the crowd was still. A few eyes widened. A few hands slowly lowered their phones. I worked 3 jobs. I skipped meals. I took out loans with interest rates that would make your head spin. And every time I felt like giving up, I remembered the dinner table conversation where they told my sister they'd help her follow her dreams, then turned to me and said, "You'll figure it out." I paused. Let it sink in. You could hear the ventilation system humming. But I did figure it out. I held up a small black USB stick between my fingers. This holds every scholarship I earned, every essay I wrote, every grade, every award, every letter of recommendation. I didn't come here just to graduate. I came here to prove that belief isn't always earned by birthright, it's earned by persistence, grit, silence, and unshakable self-respect. A soft gasp echoed from the fourth row. I didn't look. I don't say this for pity. I say this because someone out there, maybe you, maybe the girl sitting behind you, is sitting on a mountain of unspoken disappointment, and she deserves to know that she's not invisible. I took a deep breath. And to those who didn't believe in me, I locked eyes with my parents. Thank you, because without your silence, I might have never learned to speak this. Loudly, thunderous applause, not polite clapping, real, roaring, rising applause that filled the auditorium like an avalanche. I stepped back from the mic. No tears, no regrets. Just one last look at the people who raised me and never really saw me. Now they did. And everyone else did too. I didn't run off the stage. I didn't bask in the spotlight either. I just walked calmly back to my seat, like I hadn't just cracked the very foundation of my family's illusion in front of hundreds of people. My hands were steady. My breath was calm. But when I sat down, I felt the weight of their eyes on my back. My father's confusion, my mother's embarrassment, Madeline's rage. The applause was still fading when my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. Just 2 words. Really, Aubrey? I didn't reply. Instead, I watched Madeline walk across the stage 15 minutes later, face locked in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her applause? Shorter. Her cheers? Hollow. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the main character. And she hated it. After the ceremony, graduates flooded out into the sunlit lawn for photos. I stayed back, letting the crowd thin out. Eventually, I spotted them, my parents and Madeline, huddled in a tight circle near a cluster of balloons. I could feel it before I even reached them. The tension in the air was suffocating. My mom turned first. Her expression wasn't angry, it was worse. It was wounded, but not the kind of wound that says, "You hurt me because I love you." No, it said, "How dare you make me look bad? You embarrassed us," she hissed under her breath. I told the truth. I said simply. My father stepped in, voice low and tight. "That wasn't the time or place, Aubrey. You humiliated your sister. She had 4 years of being celebrated," I replied. I took 10 minutes. Madeline was silent. She was staring at me with a kind of venom I didn't know she possessed. Her voice, when it finally came, was low and sharp. "You think this makes you better than me?" I turned to face her fully. "No, but it makes me seen." That was it. That was the moment it all cracked. Madeline stepped forward. "You're pathetic, Aubrey. You could have just talked to us. Instead, you stood on stage and made us look like monsters." "I didn't make you look like anything," I said, my voice steady. "You did that." I just turned on the lights. People were starting to look. Other families, still taking photos, began glancing our way. My parents noticed. My mom grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. "You think this little stunt makes you some kind of hero? You've always been dramatic." I blinked slowly. "No, I've always been quiet. And you all mistook that for weakness." She flinched, then she whispered, "You've changed." "Finally," I whispered back, "and maybe now, you'll have to as well." They didn't ask for photos with me. There was no group hug, no dinner reservation, just cold goodbyes, fake smiles, and an awkward pat on the shoulder from my dad. As they walked away, I saw Madeline pull out her phone and open Instagram. She posted a picture of her holding her diploma, captioned, "So proud of myself, some people just can't handle it." I smiled. Let her have it, because while she was busy curating illusions for the internet, I had done something real, and people remembered it. I walked away alone, but for the first time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt unstoppable. The day after graduation, I woke up to over 50 text messages and 36 missed calls. Some were from classmates, some from old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. A few were from people I didn't even know, and one was from a name I never expected to see again, Professor Lane, She had been my freshman year writing professor, fierce, brilliant, and the kind of woman who could slice through your essay with one eyebrow raise. She once told me that words were weapons, and I remembered. Her message was short. That speech, that was war. I want to talk. I blinked, sat up in bed. My phone buzzed again, this time with Instagram notifications. Someone had posted a video of my speech. Not just a clip, the whole thing. Shot from the fourth row. High quality. Good audio. It had been shared over 12,000 times. Comments were pouring in. I've never heard someone put pain into words like that. As a middle child, I felt this. She didn't just graduate, she detonated. This is the energy I'm bringing into my life. Who is this girl? She's a writer or something, right? I sat there, stunned. Somehow, in less than 24 hours, I had gone from invisible twin to viral voice. But it wasn't the popularity that stunned me. It was the messages from strangers, people who said they'd finally found the courage to confront their own families. People who said my words helped them leave toxic homes. People who hadn't spoken to their siblings in years, but now planned to. My inbox was a war zone of truth and trauma. But in the middle of it all was Professor Lane. We met at a quiet coffee shop 2 days later. She didn't waste time. She never did. You've got something, Aubrey, she said, sliding a folder across the table. I teach young writers every year. Most are loud. Most are clever. But few are sharp. You cut. I didn't know what to say. She opened the folder. Inside was a contact list. Literary agents, editors, a writing retreat in Vermont, an invitation to speak at a regional education conference. You said you wrote everything down. You still have that file? She asked. I nodded. Turn it into something. A book, a memoir, a manifesto. Hell, even a blog. But don't waste this moment. I stared down at the folder. Was this real? After years of grinding, of working behind the scenes, of being overlooked, was I finally being offered a seat at a table I didn't even know existed? She stood up to leave, but before she did, she said one last thing. Sometimes the people who ignore you are just bad at recognizing power. That doesn't mean you weren't powerful all along. I walked home with that folder clutched to my chest like it was made of glass. Later that night, I opened a blank Google Doc. I titled it Unseen, and then I wrote the first sentence. They told me my sister was the smart one, so I became something smarter. Silent. It started as a whisper, a cryptic tweet here, a shady Instagram story there. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, until I realized it wasn't just noise. It was her, Madeline. 2 days after my speech went viral, she posted a black and white selfie with the caption, "Some of us succeed quietly, others scream for attention. Congrats, I guess." A day later, another post, a boomerang of her sipping champagne with her sorority sisters. The caption? "Here's to earning things without playing the victim." And then it got worse. Someone DM'd me screenshots of comments under her newest post, a graduation shot with her in the red dress, holding her diploma like a trophy. One user had commented, "Your sister's speech made me cry. You must be so proud of her." Madeline replied, "I don't reward people who use pain as a publicity stunt." My stomach dropped. Not because she hated me, I knew that already, but because she was trying to erase me. She couldn't take away my speech. Too many people had seen it, but she was trying to rewrite the narrative, cast herself as the misunderstood older sister, and me as the attention-hungry drama queen. It worked. A little. Some of her followers, especially the ones who didn't know me, started leaving comments on my page too. "You seem bitter, TBH. Not everything is about you. Imagine using your own family for clout. Grow up. Everyone has struggles." And then came the DMs, dozens, some supportive, most not. I tried to ignore it. I told myself to stay focused, to keep writing. But one night, I cracked. I stared at my screen, scrolling through her perfectly lit photos, her endless parade of curated moments, and I started typing. Not a comment, not a DM, a letter. To her, "Dear Madeline, we were born minutes apart, but somehow I always felt years behind you. You were the first to walk, the first to speak, the first to sparkle. And I let you shine, not because I thought you deserved more, but because I believed there'd be enough light for both of us. I was wrong. You took the spotlight. And then you took the credit for the stage I had to build with my bare hands. I didn't speak on graduation day to steal anything from you. I spoke because I was done being silent. If that threatens you, then maybe it was never love between us. Maybe it was always a race you thought you were winning until you realized I was running a different marathon entirely. I won't fight you online. I won't trade subtweets or Instagram jabs, but I will keep speaking, and if that burns down your version of the story, maybe it wasn't worth keeping. Sincerely, your sister. Not your shadow. I never sent it. Instead, I printed it, folded it, slipped it into an envelope, and mailed it to her apartment no return address. Then I logged off. For 48 hours. I disappeared from the internet, and when I came back, something unexpected had happened. Someone big had reposted my speech, a major education influencer, hundreds of thousands of followers, and they captioned it, "This isn't just a speech, it's a movement." The comment section, nothing but love. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was drowning in someone else's narrative. I was writing my own, and the world was finally reading. It was a Tuesday when the phone rang. Not a text, not a DM, a full-blown phone call from my mother. I stared at the screen like it was radioactive. We hadn't spoken since the day of graduation, not really. A few cold messages, one sarcastic group text reply, but nothing human, nothing that resembled a relationship. I let it ring until the last second. Then I answered. "Hello," I said, keeping my voice flat. "Aubrey," she said. No warmth, just breath and sharp syllables. "We need to talk." I waited. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't comment on the speech. She didn't mention the viral video or the letter I sent to Madeline. What she said was, "We've received calls." From who? People in the neighborhood, friends, church groups, even Dad's boss. They've all seen the video. And they're asking questions about how we raised you, about what really happened. She paused. "You're making us look like villains, Aubrey." There it was. Not concern, not regret, just damage control. "I didn't make you look like anything," I replied. "I just told my story. You told a version of it," she snapped. "A twisted, public, humiliating version that ignores everything we did for you." I almost laughed. "You mean like not paying for my tuition?" "That wasn't personal," she snapped. "We only had enough for one." And she what? Smiled more. Asked first. Was less threatening to your image? Silence. Then came the guilt card. "We gave you a roof, food, clothes. You never went hungry." I closed my eyes. The classic checklist. As if survival equals love. "You didn't raise me," I said quietly. "You raised Madeline. I raised myself." She went quiet again. Then she switched gears. "We want you to take the video down." I froze. "You're not serious." "It's gone too far. People are talking. We're being shamed in our own community. Maybe now you know how I felt 4 years of being ignored while you showed off Madeline like a trophy. This is different." "No, it's finally equal." She lowered her voice. It went cold, surgical. "If you don't take it down, there will be consequences. We won't be able to support you anymore. No references. No help if you apply to grad school. We'll have to cut ties." I swallowed. "Are you threatening me?" "No, I'm warning you." I took a deep breath and said the line I didn't even know was waiting on my tongue. "I've been without your support for years. The only difference now is that you're finally admitting it." She didn't reply. Then she said something that stuck with me longer than it should have. "Don't burn bridges you might need later." I let the silence hang. Then I said, "I didn't burn anything. I just stopped pretending the bridge ever went both ways." Click! She hung up. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. She had shown her cards. This wasn't about love. This was about image, control, reputation. And I had broken the frame. But instead of fear, I felt something else rising inside me. Not fire, not rage, just steel. I opened my laptop, went to my YouTube channel, scrolled to the video, and instead of deleting it, I pinned it. Then I updated the title. The speech my parents tried to silence. Views doubled in a day. People think going viral feels like flying, and sometimes it does. For a moment, thousands of likes, hundreds of shares, interview requests, emails from strangers saying, "You said what I never could." But when the notifications stop buzzing and the interviews fade, you're left alone in the echo chamber you built. And you start to wonder, was it worth it? That's where I was. 2 weeks after I posted the pinned video, I had gained over 50,000 new subscribers, received an invitation to speak at a TEDx event, and was being offered book deals from 3 different indie publishers. But my phone, my real phone, the one labeled family, stayed silent. No texts from mom, no missed calls from dad. Madeline had blocked me entirely. Holidays came and went. I saw Instagram stories from their side, family dinners, Christmas trees, matching pajamas. No mention of me, not even a joke. It was like I had been scrubbed from their lives, erased. That's what silence can feel like after you've been loud. Not peace, not freedom, just erasure. And it started to eat at me. I kept replaying that last phone call with my mother, her voice like static, her warning dressed as love, her ultimatum curled inside a smile. Don't burn bridges you might need later. But what if I didn't need that bridge anymore? What if I never did? Still, I miss them. Not the cold version of them. Not the critical glances or the hierarchy they pretended wasn't real. I missed what could have been, what should have been, and that kind of grief, the kind rooted in what never existed, is harder than death. Because there's no funeral for a relationship that never really lived. There's no closure when the thing you're mourning is an illusion. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I wrote. Late nights became early mornings. I poured everything into the manuscript. The speech was just a prologue. Now it was time to write the whole damn book. Chapter by chapter. I told the story of the ignored twin, of the self-made student, of the graduation rebellion, of the silence after the applause. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't polished. It was raw and angry and painfully honest. But it was mine. And somewhere between page 117 and 118, I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I had strangers emailing me every day, people who called me sister, daughter, inspiration. They weren't just following, they were connecting. One woman wrote, "I left my abusive family because of you." Another, "I showed your video to my teenage daughter. She finally opened up to me." And another, "You made me believe I could still start over at 34. That's when it hit me. Yes, I had lost my family, but in speaking my truth, I had created something they never could, belonging without conditions, not earned through obedience, not maintained by silence, but built one word, one truth at a time. I closed my laptop, looked at the blinking cursor at the end of the last paragraph. And for the first time since graduation, I smiled, not because I had won, but because I had survived. The email came at 2:04 a.m. Subject line: Keynote Opportunity Women's Leadership Summit 2024. At first, I thought it was spam. I almost deleted it without opening. But something made me stop. It was the name at the bottom of the email. Rebecca Choi, Director of Events, National Women's Leadership Foundation. I clicked. The body of the message was professional, glowing, and terrifying. "Aubrey, we've been following your journey and we're deeply moved by your graduation speech. Your voice represents a new generation of resilience, accountability, and truth-telling. We'd be honored to have you as a keynote speaker at this year's Women's Leadership Summit in Chicago. Travel and lodging covered. Appearance fee negotiable. We anticipate over 3,000 attendees. There is one detail I should mention up front. One of our other keynote speakers will be your sister, Madeline Miller." I froze. Read it again. Then again. No way. Was this a joke? A trap? I scrolled further. Attached was the full itinerary. Madeline's name was there, under corporate branding and influencer strategy. She was slated to speak right before me. I laughed, loud and bitter. Of Of course the universe would serve me this. After everything. After the speech, the silence, the family fracture, the online shade. After months of becoming my own person, here she was again, the twin who wouldn't disappear. I stared at the screen for a long time. I could say no, I could decline the offer, delete the email, walk away. No one would blame me, but something inside me, something still and silent and dangerous, started whispering, what if this isn't a trap? What if it's the stage you always deserved this time, shared only by choice? I responded to the email. Rebecca, thank you for your message. I'm honored by the invitation. I accept. I hit send. And just like that, the next chapter began. The following week was a blur of preparation, outfits, flights, speech drafts, calls with event coordinators, media packets, but no one talked about her. No one asked if I was comfortable sharing a stage with my sister. No one even acknowledged it beyond that single sentence in the original email, and somehow, that made it worse. It was like Madeline had wormed her way into my next big moment again, but this time, in a suit, with a microphone, and a corporate-sponsored hashtag. I researched her session. She was presenting on personal branding in a saturated world. I nearly choked. Personal branding. From the girl who weaponized Instagram to gaslight me, irony didn't even begin to cover it. Still, I stayed focused. I crafted a new keynote, not a copy of my graduation speech, but a deeper evolution of it, about being the invisible one, the disbelieved, the dismissed, and how truth-telling, dangerous, messy, painful truth-telling was the only way forward. The night before the event, I sat in my hotel room, staring at the skyline. Somewhere in the same building, Madeline was prepping too, probably sipping herbal tea, practicing her curated charm in front of a gold-lit vanity mirror. But I wasn't here to fight her. I was here to finish what I started, not with volume, but with presence. The ballroom at the Hilton was drenched in light. Over 3,000 women filled rows of chairs, buzzing with energy. Camera crews set up along the walls. Glittering banners hung from the ceiling, reading, Women WHO Lead 2024. I waited backstage, mic clipped to my collar, hands locked behind my back. And then, they introduced her. Please welcome brand strategist and media personality Madeline Miller. The crowd applauded. Not explosive, but warm, professional. I watched from the monitor. Madeline walked out in a sleek navy pantsuit, perfect makeup, flawless posture. She radiated confidence like she bottled it. She smiled wide. And I realized something. She wasn't scared, because she believed she was still ahead. She always had. Her talk was polished, her tone rehearsed. She spoke about building trust, authenticity, and how to control your own story before someone else does. The irony made my jaw clench. Then came the slide, a filtered Instagram photo of her and me, from when we were 16. The caption on screen read, "The stories they don't tell you." I froze. She was going to talk about me. Madeline turned to the crowd. I have a twin sister, she began, voice soft. You may have seen her speech, it went a little viral. Laughter. She and I have had very different journeys, different truths. And sometimes the hardest part about being in the spotlight is realizing someone else sees you as their shadow. She paused. People nodded. Empathetic sighs. And though I won't pretend to understand everything she's been through, she said, eyes flicking straight to the backstage camera, I've come to learn that your voice doesn't have to be louder to be heard. Sometimes it just needs to be kinder. More applause. The moderator thanked her. Madeline walked off to the side, and I walked on. Silence. Then, ladies and leaders, please welcome Aubrey Miller. Applause surged. Louder. Sharper. Not celebrity clapping, respect clapping. I stepped to the mic. I didn't smile. I didn't look for her. I looked straight at the crowd, and I began. My sister says your voice doesn't have to be loud to be heard, but for some of us being loud is the only way we've ever been heard. Silence. I spent most of my life in someone else's narrative. I wasn't just the other twin. I was the footnote, the filler, the background character in someone else's curated fairy tale. I let the words settle. Growing up, I thought love meant disappearing so someone else could shine. That sacrifice was love. That silence was safety. But silence didn't save me. It erased me. I could see faces changing, people leaning forward, phones down. And the moment I stopped shrinking, they called me bitter, angry, ungrateful, even dangerous. I paused. Maybe I am dangerous, but not to truth. To the illusion that comfort should come at the cost of someone else's invisibility. The room was still. I could feel her watching, but I didn't break. I'm not here to clap back or reclaim a spotlight. I'm here to say if you've ever been the girl in the background, you're allowed to step forward, to speak up, to burn the blueprint and build your own damn story. The crowd erupted, this time. Not polite, not corporate, raw, real, righteous. I stepped back, looked out at the flood of women rising to their feet, and for the first time, I didn't feel like Madeline's sister. I felt like Aubrey. Nothing less, nothing more, just enough. I stepped off the stage into a hallway buzzing with crew and assistants. Someone handed me a water bottle. Another offered congratulations, but I didn't hear any of it because she was there, leaning against the far wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. Madeline. Our eyes met, and for a moment, neither of us moved. No crowd, no screens, no curated image, just two women who used to share everything, now barely sharing air. She broke the silence first. You really had to do it, huh? I didn't respond. She stepped forward. That line burned the blueprint cute, very on brand for you now. Still, I said nothing, because this time, I wanted her to say it all, to empty herself. She scoffed. Do you honestly think you're the only one who ever felt invisible? Finally, I spoke. No, but I was the only one expected to stay that way. She flinched, just slightly. You don't get it, she snapped. Everything I had, I worked for too. Just because it looked easy doesn't mean it was. I never said it was easy, I replied. I said it was unequal. She looked at me like she wanted to argue but couldn't find a lie solid enough to stand on. So what now? She asked. You keep milking the speech? Writing chapters about me in your little book? It's not about you, I said firmly. It never was. It's about what I became in your shadow. God, she muttered, turning away. You really think you're some kind of revolutionary? No, I said. I think I'm finally honest. She turned back sharply. You made Mom cry. She made me disappear. Her face twisted anger, shame, maybe even a flicker of grief. I didn't ask to be the favorite, Aubrey. No, but you never once questioned it. That stopped her. I stepped closer. I don't hate you, Madeline, but I can't pretend anymore that you didn't benefit from a system that kept me small. She bit her lip. I didn't know how to fix it, she said softly. I didn't need you to fix it, I replied. I needed you to see it. And for a second, just a breath of time, I think she finally did. Her shoulders dropped. Her voice lost its edge. I saw the video, the full one, not just a viral clip. I nodded. I saw you. I didn't reply. I didn't know how. So we stood there, not healed, not reconciled, but no longer hiding. She turned to leave. But before she did, she said, next time you're on a stage like that, I hope I'm proud of you before everyone else is. And then she was gone. I stood there in the silence she left behind, not broken, not triumphant, just whole. For the first time in my life, we weren't playing roles. We were just two people trying to understand the damage and maybe someday move past it. But until then, I had my own name, my own voice, my own story, and I wasn't done telling it. 6 months passed. And no viral clips, no speeches, no press, just quiet, steady building. I moved to a new city, one where no one knew me as the girl with the speech, where I could walk down the street and not feel eyes tracing my story behind me. I rented a tiny studio apartment above a bookstore. It smelled like paper, ink, and beginnings. And I started teaching, not full-time, just evening workshops, writing for healing, writing for truth, writing for those who never got to speak. Every week, 12 strangers would sit in a circle, mothers, daughters, survivors, dreamers, and slowly find the courage to pick up their pens, and in guiding them, I healed myself, because for the first time, I wasn't speaking at people. I was speaking with them. One night, after a particularly raw session where a woman in her 60s read a poem about forgiving her father, I stayed behind to clean up. A young girl, maybe 17, approached me, notebook pressed to her chest. "Your speech saved me," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I blinked. I watched it 100 times. Before school, before dinner, before telling my mom I wanted to leave. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened. She handed me a folded piece of paper. Inside was a drawing of me on stage, mic in hand, light behind me, and the words, "Not your shadow anymore." I smiled. Tears blurred the edges. "Thank you," I whispered. She nodded. "I'm going to college next year. First in my family." I placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're going to change everything." That night, I went home and reopened my manuscript. The book was done. But now, I added an epilogue. This isn't a story about pain. It's a story about what pain taught me to build. I used to think I needed permission to be loud, to take space, to rewrite the script. But here's what I know now. The story you were born into doesn't have to be the one you stay in. You can leave. You can speak. You can burn it down and build something new. Not in spite of who you were, but because of it. I hit save. And I knew. I was done trying to make them see me. I finally saw myself. Sometimes I wonder if they're still watching, if my parents scroll in secret, if Madeline ever turns the volume up, if people from my hometown whisper about me in hushed tones at church gatherings or backyard barbecues. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. But if they are, here's what I'd say. Thank you, not in the soft, forgiving way. Not in the "I'm over it" way, but in the clarity after the storm way, because your silence built my spine. Your favoritism sharpened my focus. And your doubt, it lit a fire I never knew I had the oxygen for. I used to ache for your approval. I used to wonder if I'd ever say something that made you finally look at me like I mattered. But now, I don't want a seat at your table. I built my own. And it's full of people who don't need me to shrink, smile, or soften to be invited, people who hand me the mic, not because they feel guilty, but because they want to hear what I've carried all these years. And now that I've spoken, I'll never go back. To the girl watching this right now, who thinks she has to stay small to be safe, you don single quotes to the woman who raised someone else while forgetting herself. It's not too late. To the silent sister, the second born, the overlooked student, the underestimated worker. You're not invisible. You're in progress. And progress, it's loud. If they're watching now, I hope they finally understand. I was never trying to steal a spotlight. I was just trying to step out of the dark. And I did. Not perfectly, not painlessly, but powerfully. And I'll keep walking one step, one story, one truth at a time. Because this life, this voice, it's mine now, and I'm not giving it back.